What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the EF Sedan fuel cell. If you guys are just barely catching on, we are going all-wheel drive in the car, and the differential, axles, and drive shaft does not clear the front-wheel drive gas tank. I'm going to answer this question right now before you guys put the comment down below. Why don't you run the FCS underneath fuel cell? First of all, very expensive. Secondly, half a tank. Third, if you buy a second tank, it's more money, and that means more pump, more lines, and it just adds to the list. Instead, I'm just going to run an eBay fuel cell, the good old trusty eBay fuel cell that I've been running in the H2B CRX and also my red all-wheel drive CRX. So before we get to it, I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff that we're going to be rocking, and we're just going to dive into it because we have a lot of work ahead of us. Yeah, eBay fuel cell. This right here is a 15-gallon. Cut away from yourself, not towards yourself. Now you're probably wondering, damn Static, why are you running a 15-gallon fuel cell when the stock Civic is about 10-11 gallons? Well, if you guys don't know, if you guys don't watch the vlogs, I travel a lot, right? Or when I do, I travel far. And it's nice to have extra gallons of gas to ensure we're gonna make it to the next gas stop. And also having the extra gallons of fuel means we can go further. So 15-gallon fuel cell is what I have in the H2B CRX, and 15-gallon is what I have in my red all-wheel drive CRX as well too. This is nice. I always buy the fuel cell in raw aluminum, so that way when we modify it, we don't have to like grind down the paint or anything, because they do come in blue, red, black, green I've seen, but raw aluminum is probably best if you know you're going to be modifying it. I will tell you that this right here, this plastic fill, will break over time. My all-wheel drive CRX started smelling gas inside the car, and then when I went to go check, this whole entire unit literally deteriorated. So it's always nice to replace this with either a steel or aluminum one, and in my case, we'll talk about it when we get to it. These are the metal right here we picked up from the supply shop, and first thing we got to do is turn this car backwards. Guys, with the bumper on, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I don't think I've shown you guys on YouTube, but I know on IG I did. I repaired this broken latch right here. I cut the whole entire thing out, put a new plate in there, painted it, and now the trunk latches. You guys remember when we went to go pick it up, we duct taped it, leaving all the residuals right here. But anyways, we're gonna have to move the car forward a little bit so we can get the light in here. So there's a ton of space in the trunk of a sedan, and I think this time around I'm gonna push the fuel cell forward just so I can use the back half of the trunk for whatever reason. And I also got to take account that over there the diff is going to be coming through it, and just got to make sure I have space between the cell and that little lump right there. Now for some reason this thing looks freaking like a 10-gallon and not a 15, but the trunk of a CRX looks smaller and it's more filling than it is on the sedan. I got like maybe 5-6 inches in the front. I'm probably gonna set it right here. It's fortunate for me that we do clear this brakes and I don't have to remove it, so that's awesome. It does have a sump right here, so it definitely has to sit up a little bit and not directly on the floorboard. I'm using these tabs right here to mount it to the chassis using the square tubing. I like that the fuel cell sits nice and low in the trunk of the sedan, and it is going to come up a little bit like I mentioned, but it is still lower than the factory gas fill area, right? You can see that. The goal here is to still retain the factory fill system, which I haven't figured out how I'm going to do it yet, and I also have to modify the fuel cell when I'm ready to do that, because we got to put like a tube, round tube that comes out of here, aluminum welded on, and then the hose that goes to that. I know S1 does sell the kit for it. I've seen it firsthand. Billet fill neck with the fuel rated hose that goes into the fuel cell, and you can fill it on from the outside. It's probably going to be one of the last things to do, because I might generate some ideas as we go along here. But yeah, let's measure out this right here and start getting our brackets all made up. 25 inches, and if I put a square tube right where these mounting points are at, it's literally going to be in the way of this guy here. So what I'm thinking of doing is going straight and then just kind of curve around this. We're not going to be using these two -10s right here because we're going to do an in tank, because I want the car to be quiet this time around. So I might just go around this and then back across the other way, just so when we pull the cell out, we can just pull straight up. I was gonna go up and over, but then you would have to like shimmy it out, right? So maybe up and over would be a better idea, because if I end up using these two, I don't have to redesign the bottom bar, right? So this is the first bar to the fuel cell. This center right here is lifted to clear the -10s on the bottom of the sump. And now we got to fit it up to see how much of a slant we have to cut on the ends to get this to sit flush in the tub. Pretty cool, mate. Pretty cool. Look at that. That right there is some clearance. Okay, well, we do want it to sit a little bit lower from the sump to the floorboard. We have maybe an inch, right? And we got to figure out the slant here and how much we got to cut. We can trim it to fit. Obviously, I want to trim it equally, so that way the fuel cell sits level instead of, you know, crooked. This is going to take a little time. Take you guys off the tripod real quick. So check this out. This side nearly flushed. The opposite side almost flushed, right? Liquid level gauge almost dead centered, and that right there is our first bracket, guys. I'm not sure if I want to weld it to the chassis or plate it, put a nut on the back side, and like my CRX here and also my red CRX, I made it a removable system. And because the tub is accessible right here on the side, it could easily be removable. The measurements between the center of the hole to the other one is 19.5. Okay, so hole to hole on the mounting tab of the fuel cell is 19.5. We're going to give it the other 1/2 inch to make it 20, minus the 1 inch bar for the front and the back puts it at 18. 18 is what we need our bar to be at. 18 plus the 1 inch crossbar is 19. This 1 inch crossbar, 20. So I made a little boo-boo. My bracket right here is actually hitting this because this is not straight, it's angled. So it's hitting right there, and I can't get this straightened out with the other side. So I'm just going to take a hammer to it, not a big deal. A couple of swings and it's already ripping off the spot weld. Not entirely, but you can see it moved a little bit right there. But I don't need the fuel cell in here. All I got to do is make sure this is matched up here, and we should be good to measure out the front. So we are sitting on the top 23, and it lands on a weird angle right here and right here. So we might have to manipulate the tub a little bit to make it sit flat, because I'm not going to keep grinding the material to conform to the shape of the tub. You know what I'm saying? I've been cutting, trimming and cutting, and now we have our front bar fitted up. So this one right here, almost flushed, almost, because the back has a little gap because of the contour of the tub. This side right here, a little gap, but for the most part kissing the tub. And what I'm going to do, I'm just gonna, from the bottom of the car, I'll just tap the tub until the gap closes, so that way it's all flush gapped. So I made a little boo-boo. The front supporting bar, this guy here, I kind of misjudged it. I thought this was going to be accessible from underneath the car, right? And I went underneath to hammer it in right here, and it turns out that we're not even close. This is the end of the tub that you can access from underneath the car, and then the subframe starts here where the LCA goes like that, which makes sense because the shock is right there, right? So right here's the subframe, and I have no access to the back of this to put a bolt into the tube. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to bolt this in because I don't want to weld it. On the end cap, I'm gonna put a nut, a plate, weld it shut, and then drill the hole to put a bolt from the underneath of the car. And then I'm gonna cut this leg off to utilize it, and I'm gonna put little legs on the bottom here, right? We have a flat spot. Over here we have a flat spot. And then I'm just gonna put a leg, 1, 2, 3, 4 supporting points with a bolt system. We'll still have the front bar here to bolt down the fuel cell to that. And I think that'll work perfectly fine. So these are my two little end caps, right? A little flat stock, drill the hole, put a nut on the back, weld the nut, and then this goes on here like that, right? And then we weld that shut. That right there is how we're gonna bolt this bracket to the trunk of my sedan. That one's tacked up, and so is this one. Yeah. This thing's so strong I can put a parachute mount on here. Just playing. So we got this bolted up. This one's bolted up. Pretty sturdy, and we are still somewhat centered. Got these cut out 1.6 inches passenger side. This one right here, driver's side, 1.2. Oh, look at that. Nice and snug. Yes, sir. This one over here, nice and snug. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Somebody come look at this. Oh, that's gonna be solid. I didn't think when I was cutting this that I used another piece of square tubing instead of cutting those off, but I think I'm just gonna leave those there. Kind of looks complete, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, anyways, mark it up, tack it up, fit it one more time, and then we can weld everything up. So I just remembered the stock EF fuel hanger has a weird like bracket right here, so I don't know if this is gonna sit flush. Actually, it looks like it would. Huh, this thing's got an aftermarket fuel pump. This is the tank from the H2B CRX, and it has an aftermarket pump. Interesting. This car sat for 18 years. And it's got E85 in it too from my red all-wheel drive CRX when I converted back to pump gas. So I'm gonna be using this hanger. Hopefully we can make it work as long as it sits nice and flat. It looks like it sits nice and flat, but all right. So the goal is to get the fuel pump to sit in the sump right there. This hat is obviously smaller than the one that we just took off. So that's what this plate is for. This plate is to make a bottom plate for the smaller hat. I was gonna cut out a, perfect size to this, weld it on, and then cut a hold for the hanger, right? And then tap this for some 10mm bolts like that, and then secure this onto this. Okay guys, so I think I know what the game plan is going to be, but one thing I need to figure out is this part right here for the fuel pump needs to be extended, because with it sitting flush on here right now, it does not actually reach the sump. So I don't know if you guys can see it. It doesn't reach the sump. We're probably 3-4 inches short. So I need to find some material to cut and extend this right here and push the fuel pump further down. I'm actually glad that I'm doing it this way, because if I welded this straight to the tank, I wouldn't be able to fit my hand in here for whatever reason. But if I wanted to access it, I can just take off all the bolts, the hole will be bigger, and I can fist it. So anyways, so I gotta figure out how to do this, but first I need to assemble the, maybe I'll leave the new one in the bag, and then I'll just assemble this guy here. But first I gotta clean it up, because I'm surprised it has a Walbro 450 in it though, I ain't gonna lie. Quick little update before I get too far ahead of myself. I was like, you know what, I could measure this on the outside, right? So I have this little plate here just to kind of mimic that plate there, and kind of line this up to where it would be sitting, and just taking note of how far from the hat we're gonna need to go to get to the sump on the bottom. That's about 1/2 inch to 1 inch or so down there. And from the top of the hat, I've already measured it, from the top of the hat to the bottom of the filter to be in the sump is 14 inches total. So that means I have to extend this right here to get the filter to be 14 inches from the hat all the way to the end of the pump. All right guys, so I've had to modify the hanger twice now. Had to cut and cut until we got the filter to sit where we needed to be. I guess I kind of over measured it a little bit, but I also had to enlarge in this hole because it wouldn't fit with the worm clamp into place, right? So we had to pump on the hanger, and it fits now. You just gotta like maneuver it around, and then eventually it'll slip in, right? And the filter now sits perfectly in the sump. Try to get you guys a shot real quick. Let me go ahead and put this all the way in. I think I have a better idea. Sorry. Okay, so I have you guys pointed at the sump. The fuel pump hanger is nice and flushed. Hopefully you guys can see the filter inside the sump. The extension right here is fully welded up, guys, on both sides. This thing is really sturdy. And before we mount this into the fuel cell, we have to modify the top here for my setup. My setup is going to be -8 coming out, -6 return, and then we also have to upgrade the wiring for the fuel pump, which we're going to be running a bulkhead right here. So that means we're going to be eliminating the factory mounting points for the ground and the power cable. So my feed line is going to be a -8, and I'm going to be utilizing the factory banjo port right here, which goes to this tube, which then goes to the fuel pump, and that's where the fuel is going to be traveling. I do have this fitting right here. I don't remember this thread pitch right here, but this converts the factory banjo hole to a -8, which is what I'm going to be running. So this pretty much threads on. It does have an O-ring on here. I'm not going to crank this down because all this is going to come apart again. So I just want to show you guys that's how it's going to look. -8 coming out. This hard line right here is the factory return line, which then returns fuel on top of the filter, which used to sit about this area, but we're going to have to extend it all the way down to the new location, so that way our filter is always going to have fuel. Another thing about the hard line too is I could technically just chop it here, put a tube fitting adapter, and then just convert this over to a -6 right off the rip, and then my new line would just go right there, and then it'll just dump using the factory tube. Or I can chop this off entirely and then use a bulkhead, which then you have to modify the hat, drill it through, bulkhead, 6 comes out, and use a 90 -6, and that'll be your new you know, return system. Right now I'm not going to modify this because I'm not entirely sure which way I'm going to go about the return line, but the next thing would be I want to chop this off. I want to chop off this ground fitting right here because we're not going to use this. So let's knock this out real quick. Okay, you guys can see right there, nice and cleaned up from the belt sander, right? This right here is for the fuel pump positive, and again, we're going to be switching this out. So I'm going to go ahead and just somehow punch it through because I've never taken this thing apart before, but we're gonna find out. All the holes are drilled and threaded. I'm gonna go ahead and ugly this on one. Please excuse my Harbor Freight light tweaking out. Need to get a new one, but I'm just going to be installing this for right now, just to show you guys the end product. And then, like I mentioned, everything is going to be coming back out. Clean the fuel cell, all that stuff. I'm using eBay hardware for right now, and then we'll switch over once everything is finalized. All right, hopefully there's enough pressure there to keep this thing from leaking. Pretty solid, and I'm stoked about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the bracket, which I didn't really show you guys after I welded it up last night. The bracket, I TIG welded it because I wanted to practice, and after seeing Slime Ball do some welding, I was like, man, I need to get out there in the garage and do some welding. So literally TIG welded this entire bracket. You guys can see it right there. And this was a lot of practice because I've never actually done vertical or vertical up or vertical down, and you know, not too shabby, right? So anyways, bracket is all welded up. This thing is going to come back out to get some paint as well too, but let's just mock everything up. I'm stoked. Guys, we have the fuel cell entirely mounted. We have the bracket all done, bolted to the chassis. We have the fuel cell mounted onto the bracket. I'm gonna put foam underneath here just so that we have a little cushion between the two metal, and the fuel pump hanger modification all set and done. I am freaking stoked. I'm also cold and I'm also pretty tired, but nonetheless, one big step out of the way. All right, guys, so garage is closed, everything's cleaned up. We are done for tonight. We got the fuel cell off the floor, into the car, bracket for the fuel cell fabricated, the factory fuel pump hanger modified, and looks like everything is going to work as far as we can see. I did mention in the beginning of the video that I want to install the -8 feed and -6 return line, but midway the entire process we kind of changed the layout a little bit, so gotta order some more parts, gotta wait for them to show up, and then we'll continue the fuel cell modification. But in the meantime, I left the fuel tank in it for now because I want the car to still be running until we are ready to tear it out entirely out of the car. So I've shown the same bracketry system on the H2B CRX and my red all-wheel drive CRX, as well as the fuel line installation underneath the car fuel pump, in-tank fuel pump between the two cars. So I will try to remember to put the link to those two in the bottom below in the description so you guys can check it out thoroughly, because I think I made it into one video where this one is going to be 2 parts. Right, been staying posted with my friend. I think his car might be coming here the next day or so, so we might switch over to a different chassis to do some swap work. I'm sorry if my face is like super lit up right now, but so anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the progress update on the EF Sedan build with the fuel cell. If you guys did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. I do have a package that came from Bull Boost. It's pretty big. It's sitting on the floor right there in an L shape. So if you guys want to stick around and see what all is in that package, man, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.